Hello there, why don't you come in and I'll show you around. So it's becoming a bit of a tradition to do a workshop tour at the end of the year, and quite a lot has changed since last year, as after I filmed the last one, I then proceeded to strip everything out of the workshop, clean, redecorate and put it all back in. So we'll start with the tool wall. So above the tool wall I've got my Badger Workshop sign which I carved, and then I've got mostly well-used tools but also things that look nice. So axes, I use one of them quite a lot to actually prep firewood. Saws, marking and measuring obviously get a lot of use. My most used hammers and mallets, dust collection fittings I use all the time, tapes, pencils, awls, that kind of stuff. Oh, and glue. And next to the glue, that's a carbon monoxide meter. Below the tool wall, I've got this cabinet where I have all my leather working tools. Then I have 2 roller carts and some Stanley organisers. Now the roller carts are something I added last year as well, and I thought that'd be a good way of organising stuff. So this one has mostly got clamps in, but I'm not sure clamps and drawers are the best solution. This other one has things like screwdrivers and pliers in some drawers. Again, I think there could be better solutions for that, but what does work well is things like router bits and drill bits. From the tool wall, going along the back wall, I've got my chisels, which I've got on some holders I made out of some wood with some leather around them, and that works really well. Now I'm a big fan of these Stanley Flat Max cases, and these are the shallow ones. And I've got more somewhere else, but this is full of screws, nails and little bits of hardware, and it's really good for keeping everything organised. And this unit is on a casters. Like pretty much everything in here, it is mobile. So we'll come to the saw later, but I have this big gap down the side, so what I keep down there is my little palm router table, my box joint jig, my Triton spindle sander, and the pillar drill. I've pulled those out, but normally they all live down there. So following the tall wall round to the other wall, I've got some of my long clamps on a simple rack there, and that works quite well. And all the smaller ones, as you saw, are in the drawers. Just past the stove are my hand planes and first aid kit, and then that little red thing above the window is a thermometer that gives inside and outside temperatures. So this is my Windy Smith stove, made down in Devon. This is the lowest stove, and I'm sure I've said this before, but it's the best addition I made to the workshop. Not only does it keep me nice and warm during the winter, also helps get rid of the scraps. And to be honest, a lot of days I wouldn't want to come out here unless I had this going. So it's great. I've got one of these little fans that just starts spinning when it gets hot, which helps move the air around. I've got my bit of railway line down here, which I just store there, which is very useful for when I do any metalworking. So that's just down the side of my bench. Then by the door, I've got this chopping block that I made, and I just use that for kindling. Then we have the door itself, which on the back of it, I've got a fire extinguisher and a fire blanket, and my workshop apron, which I always forget to put on. Then we have my Record Power air cleaner. This thing's fantastic. It's amazing how much dust it actually pulls out of the air. So very glad I've got that. Then I've got some more spring clamps and little clamps under there, which I don't use that often. The little shelf is from when I tried having my table saw there, but you can see I've got a microphone and my doorbell on it. And then we're onto the back wall. So on the back wall is where I keep 3 machines. Bandsaw, Axminster, Metabo planer thicknesser, and the Clark disc and belt sander. All of these are on mobile bases, so I pull them out when I want to use them. Above, I've got some shaker style pegs, which I think I've left over from when I did a craft fair and used them for display. So I just use them to store mitre gauges and things. And above that, I've got this marquee sign I made years ago in the old workshop. So I try and use as much space as possible in the workshop. So putting these machines on bases means I can put things under them. So under the Clark, I've got a sled for the planer and the dust port, and I've got some scraps of wood under here, and just my box for my Makita router. So I'm using the space. I didn't say it was well organised, but there was stuff under there. Now, let's move on to the bandsaw, because that's a bit more organised. Now, the Axminster bandsaw came with a stand, but I just shoved that in the garage and I made this out of some scrap wood. And this has more of the Stanley, but the deep boxes, well, I've got 4 of the deep ones, and then I've just got a couple of these little half ones as well. So if you use the stand that came with it, there'll just be completely dead space, but now I've got quite a bit of storage under there. So along the back wall, I've got a few of the bits I made. So I've got blackboard, a pin board, this wine cork board, a print I made from a log, my Maker Central thing, and then I've got this poster for an old Wadkin bandsaw. So I think last time I had 2 dust extractors in here. Now I've just got the Central Technologies System one, and because I can use this with both the 100mm and the smaller ports for the handheld power tools, so it saves a lot of space. I've also got a dust separator that goes on this, and both these things fit under the workbench, so don't take up much room. Now, something I should have sorted out before showing you is this bin has collapsed this week. It doesn't do this very often, but to sort it out, I probably couldn't push it out by hand because I'm just not strong enough to do it, but put a bit of hot water in there and it pushes out no problem. So from the poster along the wall is some hooks for the PPE, then we're back to the chisels. Right, so we're back to the table saw. So it's an Axminster Craft table saw, 8-inch blade or whatever the metric equivalent is. I've got it on a mobile base and I got the cabinet stand for it. I've added an extension wing to the side and a longer fence, and I added a homemade wooden fence, or sorry, wooden wing to this side. I've got my cross-cut sled there that works with the riving knife and the crown guard installed. And then I've got my outfeed table. So I've got the outfeed table and the saw bolted together so they're one piece. So they're perfectly flat and level, and it's just a really strong unit altogether. And then I've got a old record vise on the bench. So I think last time I had the saw on the bench in different places. I can't quite remember now, I should have watched the video. But I was looking at pictures of my old workshop back in Hampshire, and I had the table saw and the workbench pushed together. And so this is 4 foot wide, making it about 5 foot by 4 foot. So it makes it a really big, nice workspace. So I think in a small shop, having the 2 things pushed together, so you've got a bench and an outfeed table as one thing, works really well. So the other good thing about my workshop and how I can keep it clean and tidy is I also have a garage. So I don't need to keep any timber in here, any of my scraps of firewood, any of my finishes, all those things that aren't tools can go in the garage. And actually it's full of tools as well, things I don't use all the time. So let me show you quickly in there, but it is a mess. So into the garage, and straight away we've got the dust extractor and cyclone that I don't use anymore. Then over this side we've got the planer I restored last year. Now it doesn't get much use, but it's a nice thing. Junk, bench with junk on, old saw under there that hopefully has been restored by now, pillar drill to be restored, bench drill, which I don't know if I ever get round to that, the Multico table saw. I don't use it very often, but when you need to rip something big, it is amazing. Junk. And then storage on the back for wood and finishes and firewood down there. So, a mess. So, thank you for watching. Thanks to my patrons, and I'll see you next year when things should look very different again. Bye.